I were to go to the hospital and they don't know I have Parkinson's because one, I'm not the age group, I'm not in the right demographic to have Parkinson's typically. But if I go to the hospital and like my family's not around me and then they give me, the medication that's supposed to calm me down and it does the complete opposite. And it's like, they said, they're like, you can go through hallucinations. You'll be like more erratic. My symptoms will obviously be heightened. But I mean, I've heard of people like they're like ripping things like out of their arms. They're not compliant. Like it's like, it's bad. And then they try and like give you more or like do something else. And it's like, you're doing the opposite of what needs to be done. And it's like, I don't want to experience that. And I feel horrible for the people that had to go through that and for like their kids that had to watch their parents go through that. They're like, this is not, they came in for like a routine, knee surgery and somebody gave them this medication because they didn't know that Parkinson's patients can't receive it because it's not a known thing. So did you get a chance to listen? You said you did get a chance to listen to those videos, those podcasts that I sent you?
Mm-hmm.
So did you ever see the one with Alicia? Was that new for you?
That is new for me. That one was new for me. That's the one you did at Assembia with her, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I caught her in the hallway.
I don't think I really realized until I started listening to what Alicia had to say is, hey, it's where the interactions are uploaded. It's where the DURs are uploaded. And I knew that. But then as I listened to her, I started really appreciating how critical it is for us to have the right compendia information.
Right.
And for somebody to always, continuously look at it, review it to ensure its accuracy and that it's uploaded on time if a new product is coming out. And so I don't think a lot of people in the industry understand the compendia. I really don't.
Being a patient in the Parkinson's community, after probably 3 years of being diagnosed, I learned from a neurologist that there are certain medications that people who live with Parkinson's should not take if they're ever in the hospital. And there's a list. The APDA has one printed out, and I'm sure Parkinson's Foundation, Michael J. Fox Foundation. So it's known among the Parkinson's community of like, you have to be prepared to bring this list with you of medications like such as an antipsychotic that you should not, like it should not be administered in the hospital because from my understanding, they are dopamine suppressors, and anybody who knows about Parkinson's, we're already lacking dopamine. So but the issue is, it's not, again, to my knowledge, it's not in the electronic health record. So an alert doesn't come up if I were to go to the hospital to say, she has Parkinson's disease, therefore these medications should not be administered. To my knowledge, that doesn't happen today. And I want to get that changed.
So there are in some of these compendia databases what's called a drug to disease interaction. Now, it's not something that's widely used or widely known, but that product information is there. And so we have yet to understand who uses it and how we can get this information to the forefront, especially in a situation like this. So I had the opportunity to review your list.
Oh, good.
And your list is pretty extensive. And many of the products in those therapeutic categories are in the top 100 drugs prescribed on an annual basis. And so oftentimes, unless your EMR system or your pharmacy system that's also doing these alerts has this electronic means or communication to send an alert saying, okay, you're prescribing a medication that may interact or interfere with a disease that this patient's been diagnosed with. Okay, if that alert occurs, at least what it's doing is bringing to the physician's forefront or awareness, or maybe you have a nurse practitioner or even the pharmacist at the
Yeah.
pharmacy level, and maybe they're not even aware of it.
But that's only going to happen if there's an alert.
Absolutely. And that's what we need to get to the bottom of. We know that this information exists at a minimal level right now. How it's used is what I'm going to do from the next step from
Thank you.
here.
Uh-huh.
And after this meeting, after Assembia, I will be attending NCPDP.
Mhm.
That is the National Council for Prescription Drug Programs. And when I go to NCPDP, I'm going to meet with our Compendia partners. So specifically for State Bank, Medispan, Gold Standard, Redbook, I will be talking to them and see, do you have this module? Do you have something that identifies a patient's diagnosis or disease and how it interacts with any of these medications
Mhm.
on this list? So you did give me a copy of that
Yeah.
list. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I will be using that when I have my discussions with them. And as soon as I kind of get a baseline of whether or not they do have that in their database,
Mhm.
then from there, the next step would be go to some of these EMR systems. This module is available from these Compendia
Mhm.
databases. Have you guys programmed for it? How do you use it? If so, if you don't have it programmed, why don't you have it programmed? And that's where we want to bring the awareness and have that conversation.
So it's possible that the EHRs, like, I don't wanna say already have it, but they have it, it's just not turned on. Is that right?
It could, well, the turn on aspect, if you think of how Compendia data works, it's raw data.
Mhm.
They have modules that are associated with it. And if you take a system like Epic, who's one of the largest, Epic is a platform. And when they set up a hospital or they set up a clinic, they'll have all this raw data
Mhm.
that's going to come from either First Data Bank or Medispan. And they choose which modules they want to codify in the system to make up their
Mhm.
EMR system. So if that data module is available to them, have they codified for it? If they haven't, why have?
Mhm. Okay.
I personally think this should be a priority. I didn't realize this was a even an issue
I did too.
until you and I started talking about it, and I thought, wow, drug disease interactions. We never see those. We're always talking about drug, but never drug disease. And so, unless you are a clinician that is down in the weeds, you would know it as general
Mhm.
knowledge, but it would never show up on any EHR, EMR system,
Yeah.
or any pharmacy system, mind you, as an alert. And um, now I start thinking like this really should be a priority for patient safety.
Well, and the thing that was new for me because, working with, having that team at our company, I understood it, but like it didn't really hit me of like how widespread like
Mhm.
the significance of it is. But another question that I have is, with Parkinson's disease group, like, I'm not that I'm the only one that uncovered that issue. Everybody knew it was an issue, but how many other disease groups are in that same boat? And
Mhm.
who's like, do they know like how significant of a problem is it? Like, what, like, more than I from that background. Like, are there, I know there's other disease areas where because you have this disease, you cannot get certain medications, right? Drug to disease interaction.
Correct. There are, and
Are there a lot?
not too terribly many, but I do feel like in some of the rare orphan diseases, there's definitely a handful of products that are contraindicated based on the disease. Uh, Jess, I know you have been in the weeds about advocating for change on this front with the compendia. To your knowledge, what is happening to make that change? I know that you've been going a lot of conversations,
Yeah.
really pushing this forward. And is there anything positive to report that maybe
Yeah.
there's a change?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, it started with I had the conversation with Alicia, and she was talking to a group called the NCPDP. So she's a
Mm-hmm.
member of, and that's where all the Compendia members get together. And she was going to be, she already had an initial conversation with them, and was going to have it again. I think it's actually this month, to take it a step further. And But then during that time frame, like that couple months, I interviewed another neurologist at the Cleveland Clinic. So he said the word first data bank, and I'm like, oh my God, you know what I'm talking about? And we'll show that episode here as well.
Back to the other issue with regards to the Compendia and the drug disease interactions. So what we did is we had to go to the company that makes that data source. And first we got permission. We could edit what we had at the clinic because we had a higher level subscription. So we changed it to what we wanted. I said, well, that was nice, but that just helps us. And we said, well, what about everybody else? This shouldn't be like this. So they said, well, we have a petition process. If you are a subscriber, which we are, they welcome feedback, and you just have to make an appeal to change the data. So we wrote up and analyzed why it should be changed and what data supported it. And we got a quick response back from them, and they changed it. So right now, for that particular data source, worldwide, it's now correct for Parkinson's disease.
Really? Is that like Medispan or First Data Bank?
First Data Bank.
Oh, great. Okay. So any of the EHRs but they have to have the disease to drug module on.
They have to have it turned on.
Yeah.
And again, not all hospitals will have that turned on for the reasons the problems that it creates. But at least when they do, it will be correct for Parkinson's disease. And we have a lot of the appropriately contraindicated medications at the highest level.
Okay.
So that those medications, and we even saw in the interim as we implemented our intervention, you could see when the advice was out there, but it wasn't quite precise. You could see a change in pattern of what people were ordering. But some things went down while other contraindicated meds went up because it almost gives permission to give a medication that people shouldn't get if it's not on the list.
Right.
And so getting that correct is really important.
But that's what you did.
We did. Yeah. We corrected it for the for the entire data source.
That's great. Could it be replicated then to the other data sources?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay.
Unfortunately, there's not too many of them. I think worldwide there's
like 3 or 4.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So I actually have connections to
the other ones.
All of them. Yes, I do. So I'm like, we're talking about this.
So we can do it. We can do it right now.
Yeah, because I actually said, I know we're actually going to call my contact after this because that was the one thing. It's like if there's one thing that I can change.
Them all?
I know. I'm like the fact that it was. Like I didn't even know about this issue with medications in the hospital until Dr. Patel told us last year. We had him on the podcast and he what
you are.
Oh my God! I was like he said it and I'm like, wait a minute, say that again. I'm like, there's medications in the hospital that we can't get, but doctors and nurses don't know about it. Like, how is this not in the EHR? And that's when I started at work. I started like digging into and asking all kinds of questions. So this is great. It sounds like you already got it like step 1, big step changed. So thank you very much for doing that. Because what it should do, and hopefully, are you going to be able to track, or do you have somebody looking at it to say hospital incidences of, because the research I was doing is 1 in 4 patients, or 1 in 4 people with Parkinson's are likely to go to the hospital setting. So we're likely to go there more. But even the fact that we're there because of the interactions from a drug standpoint, our hospital stay is longer.
Right.
Are you going to have somebody track that to see if that starts to come down because of the changes?
We are, and we'll have that data in a few days. So he actually made the change with the Parkinson's Foundation and Epic. So they're all working together. And now I connected with the Parkinson's Foundation because I was like, okay, which they know. I was like, that is only one Compendia, First Data Bank, that you got it through. I'm like, there are, I want to say a total of 5 or 6, but there's like 3 big ones. So I was like, I told Alicia about it. She met with Parkinson's Foundation as well. So we kind of have our next steps as to, okay, let's get what First Data Bank, because Dr. Walter, what he had to do is update all the information, because he's like, it was all the info in there was old in terms of like the medication list and whatnot. And he's like, but it wasn't turned on. It wasn't a module that was turned on, but it was there still. He's like, so they had, I think, a base to work with, but they made their changes. So that's what,
now we can bring to, Medispan and the other ones to say, okay, this is the change that happened here. This is why it's so important. This is how you can help patients. Cause Lisha even said, she's like everything, people just get busy with their work. But if they know this is going to change people's lives, no doubt this is changing people's lives. And that's why I told Dr. Walter, I'm like, do you want, I know you know this. I'm like, but what you just did, you've saved so many people. And it's amazing. So he got the ball rolling. Actually, Ohio Health, where I'm at too, they started having conversations too, but I think theirs only went so far as the EHR, not going a step further to Compendia. So it sounds like, I'm sure there's pockets of people doing this, but I'm like, this needs to be everywhere. There's no reason. It
does. And so Epic, let's talk about Epic a little bit. They're a huge EHR system. Mm-hmm. If one hospital system or two hospital systems, Cleveland Clinic, Ohio Health, those are two big hospital systems. I mean, you would think that then Epic would sit back and say, well, let's just make this change across the country to all hospital systems that we currently work with, or physicians' offices or practices. I mean, that seems like a very simple conversation and fix.
So we were
maybe I'm asking for too much when I say that.
I know, it's we never know what we're asking for, but it always sounds like it's just turn the switch, up, push up. But Alicia and her team member Crystal and I, we were talking about that with the Parkinson's Foundation because, we also do work with EHR. So it's I think there is a way, but it's getting at the top of Epic, which again, it shouldn't be that hard. So I'm optimistic that we're going to be able to do this. But again, Epic, I think, is 40% of EHR, the market. So there's huge. Still so many other ones to get to. So again, that's why she said the federal mandate would make everybody have it turned on. But yeah, again, it's great that we're making these changes and starting to see the response and everything for Parkinson's, but what other disease groups can look into this, or do we look into it for them, or find the right advocacy group to say, did you know this? And we can help you get there. I don't know. Is that an option?
Right. And, as I think about it, it's going to take a federal mandate to make that change. Mm-hmm. And in the absence of understanding who's going to step up to make that change, it sounds like these foundations, like the Parkinson's Foundation, or maybe, American Cancer Association, or any of those groups have to take up the flag to say, we need a federal mandate. We need a change in how we're to turn on the module, right?
So what Alicia had me look at was the OBRA 90.
Okay, yeah.
And that in there, it talks about the drug to disease module, but it's not federally mandated. I think that the drug to drug is mandated. That has to be part of the on the EHR and whatever. So she was like, if you really want to take the next step further and make sure that everyone has this, then we have to do it from a government standpoint to get this federally mandated, that this drug to disease interaction becomes part of that mandatory aspect. Because otherwise it's just then still up to the Compendia and the EHRs to flip that switch and turn it on. Well, that's all I have. Do you have any other questions?
I don't. I think,
we'll continue the conversation.
We'll continue the conversation. And I'm really looking forward to the updates from the NCPDP meeting. And if, this disease state is the first one to get the module turned on, wow, what a huge win.
No, I would just love if this happened and I can tell everybody in my gym, and then go on the Secret Life of Parkinson's podcast and tell everybody hey, this happened, and it would just be amazing. So more to come.
More to come. That's right.
So make sure you keep tuning in. But yeah, thanks for joining.